Two. Yes, there we go. Hello, Mikey. Good morning. It's Michael Knight, New York Vinnie. He's Michael Knight. I'm New
I'm
York
in,
Vinnie. We're
and
here.
that's the short version and the long version at the same time. He's New York Vinny. I'm Michael Knight. Entertainment and information as we take on the world with little or no notice. We didn't notify the world, and
No,
I was
no.
going to send a quick note, but then I decided to let the world figure it out.
We dropped over without calling.
There
Cardinal
you go.
sin. The older you get, remember when we were kids, you just go over somebody's house. You didn't
And that
even
was it.
knock. You just opened the door. You went in. Maybe once in a while you caught your friend's mom and dad on the couch. But other than that, it was a perfect existence.
You just go. You knew you were welcome. And if the kid wasn't home, you had the option of staying until he did get home or whatever. You
Right.
could,
Sit inside, watch TV until Johnny comes home, and or he strikes up the band, whichever he wants to do.
or both, comes home and strikes up the band.
Exactly. And so, bing, bang, boom. But now, you got to call, you got to send a text, you got to send a letter, you got to get permission. You have to make sure that nobody's going through the hallways or anything like that. I mean, it's really
Clear the hallways.
clear
Clear
the
the hallways.
hallways. We're coming over. It's such a change today and I don't know if that's. I mean, maybe kids do that today. I don't think so, but it's such a change from how we grew up, where there was this freedom to get away from your house and get away from your parents and kind of get out and see the world. Now, I hear parents saying, "Well, I can't, I don't know if I can go to my kid's soccer. I can't take my kid to the soccer game because I can't let him walk 3 blocks to the park alone."
It's not safe.
Yeah, it's not safe to do that, and that's you know, while we talk about all the problems that everybody has, ain't that a big problem?
That's well, it speaks to a larger problem. If your child's not safe, what does that really mean?
Right.
What you're saying is they're not safe at school. They're not safe in a social environment that can't be controlled. They're not safe. If there's an element of danger, they're not safe. Parents are that way. But I've been watching exactly what you're talking about in terms of coming over to someone's house. I have a first grader to observe who comes home from school, is exhausted from the experience, but still has the energy to go on her tablet and talk to her best friend that she just saw. But they have a private meeting, girls only, doors closed, as they tablet one another and talk about the gritty affairs of the day, as seen through the eyes of a female first grader.
Well,
So so you don't have to go over to your friend's house. You can just beep. Yeah,
yeah. See, and that's I don't know. There's just something you're losing something in that, aren't you?
you're losing the trip over to the house and what you might see and who you might encounter and and how welcome you'll be. And you know you're going someplace. Speaking of safety, if you're going to your friend's house, where could you be more safe? Mom's in the kitchen.
Yeah. You hope. Sometimes mom isn't in the kitchen. Sometimes, it's a whole weird scenario. So I guess these days it's been drilled into us that nothing is safe. I don't know if it's been drilled into us by media, if it's been drilled into us by events that are
In
highlighted
reality,
by the media, or
this
yeah, just straight reality.
I'm just going to say who's feels safe today in East Lansing, who was a cocky sophomore just a couple days ago and now is not quite certain about their place in the world.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, school was always designed to be safe. School was a place that if there was any other place that you could go, you could go to school. Schools, now I don't know about now, but in the old days, schools were designed as bomb shelters. They were designed as sanctuaries. They were designed as government buildings where people could go in case of emergency. They all had bomb shelters. They all had, all the stuff that you needed in case an emergency hit. The after school programs were designed to keep kids from just wandering around and, give them something to do after school, give them a place to go. The schoolyards were designed to attract people, to say, you know, come here after school and play pickup softball, baseball, or handball, or whatever, whatever it was. It was actually designed with several different kinds of games in mind. And it was a place to go and hang after school if you had nowhere else to go.
What was your playground like at your favorite school that you attended?
Well, there was two playgrounds. There was the schoolyard. There was two schoolyards. There was either 145 where I went to school, that was exactly like I described it. You had a large asphalt field that was marked out with a home plate and bases, and that's where we played punch ball, or softball or baseball. Then you had another section that was divided into a smaller area, and that kind of served as, nobody played soccer then, but it was just a place you could play and not get in the way of the people that were playing punch ball. And then there were
Right.
two handball courts. And then there was 78th Street Park, which was a park, but again, a park without any grass. It was asphalt, and there you used to play roller hockey. Was big.
Uh-huh.
You took a piece of electrical tape, and that was the puck, and everybody had a stick, and you played hockey on skates, and it was huge. I mean, you really, in fall, that's what everybody switched to, playing hockey on
Did
skates.
you guys ever play kickball?
Yeah, in gym we did, but not much. We played dodgeball.
That can be an adult sport.
Well, yeah, we played it, and we also played a hybrid of dodgeball and handball. And so it was
Oh,
this game of handball where the loser would have to stand up against the wall with his head down and his butt up, and the person he lost to would get to throw the Spalding at him for as many points difference as there was. So if he beat you by one, then then he threw the ball at you once. If he beat you by 10, you better have padding in your ass that day.
it's going to be an experience you won't soon forget.
It's going to be something that you're going to remember. And I still remember a few times getting it.
Hey, Vinny, you're walking funny. What's the deal? I lost.
I lost 3 games today, man. But that was, you couldn't chicken out. If
No.
you chickened out, you were seen as an undesirable.
Lesser than.
Yeah, lesser than. And it wasn't about bullying or anything like that. I mean, it was your choice to participate. Although, yes, I got bullied. I think everybody that wasn't 6 feet tall when they were a kid or a big kid got bullied. But it was no, I don't know. It was it was part of the tradition of growing up, and I'm sure that game does not happen anymore in New
No.
York.
No.
The police would be there. You'd have a YD card immediately for that.
One of the aspects of our kickball field where you could play softball or hardball, Spalding ball, anything, was in left field. There was a Quonset hut. A Quonset hut that was left over on the edge of our school ground at A.E. Kent School in Kentfield, California, in Marin, where there had been a Marine base. And when I was in grammar school, right next to us was a couple Quonset huts, and there was always a couple Marines in there. I don't know what they did. It wasn't a place to sign up and become a Marine. It wasn't a place to pick up your guns and go defend Marin County against the Russians because they didn't have any armaments there.
Although they were working on that
They were
movie,
working
The
on it.
Russians Are Coming. The Russians Are Coming. So
That was They were doing the preliminary. They did the storyboards there. Anyway, the home run was to kick one over the Quonset hut, or to knock one over the Quonset hut. And I just wonder if that Quonset hut is still there because the Marine base is long gone. You can't have a Marine base in the middle of Marin County. What are you out of your mind?
although
many
it's
Marine-
aptly named, I mean,
How many Marines can you have at a base? And if you're lucky, there was one guy if everyone showed up, there was two of them. That was it. Was just, I don't know what kind of a base it was. They were just they had the land, they had the Quonset huts, and it was pretty good duty to hang out in
Oh,
if you were assigned to Kentfield. Yeah.
I'll bet. I'll bet that was. I'll bet there were people vying for that assignment.
So did you have to sign out bats if you wanted to play softball, or would they give you bats and a mask and stuff like that and a ball?
Nobody wore masks. Unless you were in like a league softball thing or in school. At 78th Street Park, you could sign out a ball, you could sign out a bat, you could sign out hockey sticks because there was a knock hockey game.
Right.
You could sign out a basketball. And in the summer, you better get there early because, the big kids would get there at 9 o'clock in the morning when the parky got there. And sign them out and not bring them back. He was supposed to bring them back in an hour. But the parky was like 85 years old. So he wasn't chasing after anybody. I mean, here's a guy 85 years old, he's cleaning bathrooms. He's sweeping up at the park. He's not chasing after anybody for a Spalding ball. He's like, screw it. If you get it early, you get it. But you could, in theory, you could sign out. And if you got lucky and the kids who got there at 9 o'clock in the morning got tired of playing or had to go at noon or something like that, then you could get a ball again. They didn't have handballs. Like we used to use those little black
Yeah.
handballs too.
Sure.
And they didn't have those. Those you had to bring if you wanted to play.
I specialized in a long, slow, high serve that would go boom right to the back line. Dunk. You had to let it land because you thought it was going to be out. But if you let it land, you were in no man's land because now you can't return it. It
Yeah,
was my
yeah.
specialty: the long, high, big, lofty serve.
There were guys that could play. I mean, we had handball players in Jackson Heights that could play.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, these guys spent, all day at the handball court, just, playing winners. You got, I got next, so you play and there was no list. It was just like a glare.
if you wore a glove and just waited calmly, they knew what you were there for.
Exactly, and you got to see and learn if you just sat there and watched when you were a little kid. By the time you were old enough to play with those guys, you got a pretty good idea how to play handball.
Yeah,
And then we also had handball, and then we had box ball, where you play that with a Spalding usually, where you could just take four boxes on a sidewalk and play, back and forth with each other. And that was a form of handball. And there was also Chinese handball and American handball, which went up against a wall, could be played on a sidewalk up
right.
against the side of a building.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a park.
One game that got started in I've talked to you about this before. It got started in Southern California, more commonly San Diego than L.A., called Over the Line, and they play it with all you need is four guys, and you play it on the beach, and you mark out the field on the beach, which is a long narrow field. You have to hit it over the line and into the box, which can be 100 yards long. It doesn't matter how long it is, because if you have three guys on the team, you have a long narrow field, and you got to hit it deep. If you hit it over everybody's head and it stays between the lines, you got a home run and everybody scores. And you pitch to yourself. The guy kneels in front of you and lofts the ball like batting practice.
Huh.
And
Okay.
it's a great game that I never heard of until I moved to San Diego in my 20s, and it's still a great game that I advise everyone to play. It takes no experience whatsoever. Anybody can play over the line because all you do is hit the ball or catch the ball, depending on what side you're on.
Did
And yeah,
Again?
and well, it's a great pastime. You can play
Yeah.
it on the grass, you can play it on the sand, you can play it on a hard top, anywhere you want. Just chalk out the field, and you're in business to go.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny because the games that it seems were played in California because there was more space
Right.
seemed to have that. I mean, the New York games were much more compact. You had to be
Depending on
able to
what
play
block
it
you're on.
on a sidewalk. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, because that's, if you were just hanging out, you wanted to play, especially when you were hanging out on your turf. You didn't want to leave your turf to go to the park, so you stayed there and you invented games that you could play on your turf.
So
You
you can
know,
hold your turf.
right? We didn't want to leave 83rd Street, so we were like hanging out on 83rd Street and 37th Avenue, and then we're playing box ball, or we're playing American or Chinese handball, or ring alivio, or some of the different sports that are played without a ball, or kid games that are played without a ball. As a matter of fact, when I got to San Francisco, I got involved with a group of people who used to do the New York City street games
Oh, I like that.
out in the Richmond district, the inner Richmond. There was a schoolyard there, and one Sunday a year they would get all of these different people together from the were ex-New Yorkers, and they would set it up like different stations. So you had a punch ball station, you had a ring a you could play ring alivio, you could play I forget what they call it, Potsy, yeah, pitch and pennies, bottle cap, whatever was going on. These
Whatever
people,
was your specialty.
yeah, and it was a fun thing, and a few years that they did it, it really was huge. I mean, it really was. They had a ton of people there. Maybe 1,000 people,
You
1,500
you
people.
probably remember that famous picture of Willie Mays in his street clothes playing stickball in
Oh
New
yeah,
York,
yeah,
and he was swinging for the fences. He wasn't there to say, "Hey, I'm a giant." Nope, he was there to win the game.
yeah. Willie, Willie was always swinging for the fences, right?
Yeah,
I mean, what's the old line? Home run, singles hitters drive Chevys. Home run hitters drive Cadillacs.
and sometimes the Cadillac is an award for hitting those home runs.
Sometimes it is, man. It's
And where did you get
president.
this Cadillac? Bob St. Clair Cadillac, and San Bruno. Bob St. Clair, the mayor of Daly City, an ex-49er, happy to say to Willie Mays, "Say, hey, kid."
Oh man, those were yeah. Now you don't see. I mean, every once in a while, like we have a couple of Mariners that do car dealer commercials up here. But I mean, does a baseball player even need a free car? Although I take that back because it doesn't matter if you need it or not. The idea is that you can get it.
Yes,
Uh, you know,
that's another matter.
you never lose that feeling, no matter how rich you are. I don't know. I'm not that rich. Matter of fact, I'm not rich at all. Matter of fact, I'm sub-rich. But you never lose that feeling of something for free.
It's
You
a
know,
good feeling.
the first guy at the free food table in a radio station is traditionally the guy who's making the most money in the station,
The
right?
morning guy, yeah.
The morning guy or the sales manager. Either one of them are always in there on the as soon as they bring the bagels in, man, they're the first one that's there with the free food. Meanwhile, there's people come in later and they're taking like the half bagels that people leave and putting them in a bag so they can take them home for dinner.
What happened to the bagels? They're gone, but we have half a schmear if anyone in sales is interested.
Yeah, and the good thing about a radio station is sales is always interested in a half a schmear. There's somebody that will take that. You could, I mean, I've told a story often of the Cairo turkey, where it comes in on Thursday, nobody cleans it up, and on Monday there's people sitting there picking at it.
Yeah.
If you're that bad that you got to stick your hand inside the cavity and pull out a piece of stuffing on Monday morning after Thanksgiving, you got a
Ooh,
problem.
yeah, you're about to have another one. Yeah, that's going to
Yeah.
be there's going to be some resistance from the body politic on.
Where's Tommy? Oh, he's been in the bathroom for about a half hour.
You don't feel so good, Thanksgiving.
You want to use the downstairs bathroom because the upstairs bathroom you don't want to go near. Tommy's been in there a while. Well, how come he's not reading the news? Oh, he's reading it from the bathroom.
Yeah,
Well, he's got that extra echo on this morning.
it sounds good. Sounds like reverb. Good way to go. Be inventive.
Oh man. President's Day. Happy President's Day, Mikey.
Yes, our president is in the great non-American city of Kyiv this morning.
Yes, he is hanging out in Kiev, showing American support for the actions that the the Ukrainian government is doing to defend itself against the big bad bear, the Russians.
I wonder if you
And
can get hot chicken in Kiev. You think they have American food in Kiev?
oh, I'm sure they do. I mean, I don't know if you heat it up by just holding it up to a passing rocket or something like that. But yeah, I could
Now
imagine that they
that's
have.
pretty clever, Vinny. Holding up your chicken sandwich to a passing rocket just to reheat it.
Oh, it'll heat. I mean, those things go by at about 1,800 degrees.
Oh, it'll reheat
So,
it. Yeah.
and plus they get all that microwave crap coming off with them. So I'm sure that it'll toast your chicken and probably your arm as it's going
Now, where
overhead.
where can, where can Vladimir Putin go to make a surprise visit during to one up Joe Biden on this one? It seems like Biden's
Chicago,
got Chicago would be good.
Chicago.
I like Milwaukee. He can go over to Aaron Rodgers' house.
Well, anywhere that the Republicans um, have a, uh, a stronghold because they seem to love him.
Well, they
They
should go to
seem,
Florida then. He can have lunch with DeSantis.
yeah, just douche Santis. Yeah, I think it's. Yeah, I think it's mighty. It's mighty interesting. Well, he's going to host the Chinese. Is it? I don't think the president's going, but I think it's like the minister of getting rid of people.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
in Hungary today trying to talk sense to a dictator.
yeah, and so he's gonna, so they're gonna meet up tomorrow. I think that's why Biden rushed over there, is to kind of preempt that whole thing. This is turning into a mess because you can plainly see that the Chinese and the Russians are going to get together here somehow.
Well,
Um,
they had an opportunity at the beginning of this outbreak of hostility, and the Chinese balked. They said, "Nope, we're just going to wait and see." Now, if you were waiting to see how this was going to turn out, you've seen enough. So, if you want to get into this game on the clear side of the loser, when the leader Putin is in what you would have to call dangerous territory in terms of maintaining his hold on the Russian populace. Do you want to get in bed right now? Is that what they want to do? They want to make a deal now that the Russians are making a mess of it, and would that deal include support other than financial for his war effort? In that case, you have China and Russia allied against NATO and the United States, and Russia's already lost their grip on Ukraine. Does China really want to get into that? If they think
well,
about this logically, what's the advantage to
and
them?
and the other side of it is too, Mikey, is that who's China's biggest customer?
And
I mean,
who's our biggest debt servicer?
yeah, I mean, really, if you think about it, would it make sense for the Chinese to get in bed with the Russians? I mean, if they because they don't trust each other.
No.
So one's going to have to be dominant, one's going to have to not. The only thing that they would accomplish by getting together would be weakening the United States, probably militarily, and who knows how that would play out. But they would certainly lose. China would lose their biggest customer, their biggest trading partner, their
And
biggest.
they would lose Western Europe as well because they would lose the NATO states who stand against their moves. And what would China be like in terms of its business dealings with no number one customer and no number two customer, based on backing a guy who's losing this war, backing somebody who can't help them financially, who can't
And
help them militarily?
right, and also there's a matter of trust. I mean, who do you trust more? Do you trust doing business with the United States? That's a country that, yeah, we're a little wacky. We got the Marjorie Taylor Greens running around, but we pay our debts, and we tend to keep our word when it comes to treaties and things like that. Do they think that Vladimir Putin or his successor in any shape, manner, or form is going to keep any kind of treaty or any kind of partnership or anything that they enter into with them? No.
Or if you make a deal with Putin, how long is he going to be there to enforce that deal?
Who
Year,
knows?
another year like this one, and the future for Russia is not just the loser in the war, but broken in terms of its economy. which is a dangerous thing for China to be aligned with. A broken, failed state of that size is so unstable that it would be an ugly picture to imagine what the outcome would be.
Yeah, right. It doesn't make a lot of sense for China to align themselves with Russia, but it didn't make a lot of sense for Putin to invade Ukraine. It didn't make a lot of sense for, you know, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense for, you know, war doesn't make a lot of sense in many ways. Some ways it does. You know, if you want more territory, if you want minerals, or you want this or that or the other thing, but it never. I mean, what country ever comes out better after a war? None.
No,
Even the winner of the war, the perceived winner, doesn't come out better. I mean, yeah, people will make the argument that America was better after World War II, but you know, we forget the price of people walking around with a leg blown off, an arm blown off. Every time they heard a firecracker or a backfire, they ran into the garden and dug a hole. I mean, the toll that it took on America was horrible. Look at what the Vietnam War did to us. Even worse.
there's a good example of somebody doing something in terms of war that made no sense. But we defended it right to the end. We convinced ourselves. We lied to ourselves, convinced ourselves, outmaneuvered ourselves, and put ourselves in a position where we couldn't win and where we didn't know how to lose.
Yeah, yeah. It was something where it should have never been, and yet, as Eisenhower so warned people, look out for the military-industrial complex. When you had Robert McNamara, the former head of Ford, as the Secretary of Defense, you know that something was gonna, you know that something was up.
What are we
Yeah,
going to do? What are we going to do? We're going to take Ford pickups to Vietnam. And I don't mean a little, I mean a lot of them. It's going to be beautiful.
yeah. It really is amazing that the stuff that people people get away, have gotten away with. All right, here's on President's Day. Here is your Marjorie Taylor Greene celebration of
Oh,
President's Day.
I
All
didn't
right.
get an invitation.
Ah, you should have been there, Mikey. She did a little dance in her white fur collar
Oh,
up around
dear.
the tables and had people shove campaign contributions in her garter. We need a national divorce. We need to separate by red states and blue states and shrink the federal government. Everyone I talk to says this. From the sick and disgusting woke culture issues shoved down our throats to the Democrats' traitorous America Last policies, we are done.
Well, I wish that were true.
That's Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's quote,
Now, what exactly is
tweet.
she calling for there? What does she just want lunch? Is that what she's saying?
It sounds like she's calling for, I mean, red states and blue states. Sounds like to me like she's calling for a
Civil,
revolution,
a
a
civil
civil
war.
war.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it certainly looks like she's calling for a civil war.
The interesting part about that is there we had a civil war based just on those lines, foisted on us by Southern idiots who thought that they had the upper hand, who printed out their Confederate money, and that was the last we saw of them. They got some nice gray uniforms at the beginning of the war, but at the end of it, everybody had to bring their own. So Marjorie Taylor Greene and her ideas about dividing the America into red and blue, that would leave her with the red states, which would be a substandard third world country any place else on the planet. We're we're bringing them along at a point where they can't exist without us. They can't afford lunch, so we're feeding everybody. They can't afford the new economy, so that we're leading by ourselves. They can't play politics, so the Democrats have to pass all the laws by themselves. They can't do anything in the halls of governance because they've made up their mind to just vote no on everything. They can't agree with themselves on the character of the people like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Boebert or George Santos. They're a group of misfits who now think that it would be better to distract America with a civil war than to actually sit down and try and govern the nation. And that's her President's
Well,
Day gift. That's
they
what she's really thinking. All
they
this time, she was thinking, I'm more evil than you may know, and I'm going to start something here.
They can't put out an agenda. They can't, like, you can't get one of them to sit down and say, this is what we want America to look like. Now, you can talk to Democrats, or as they like to call them, those damn liberals, or they have a million names. And I don't even think it's really liberals. I think you could talk to centrists and ask them, well, what is your vision for America? What is this country supposed to look like 10 years from now, 20 years from now?
30 minutes from now.
Yeah, and you'll get an answer. You may not like the answer, but you'll get an answer. You'll get somebody that says, well, we think that old people should be taken care of. There should be nobody should touch Social Security. We should have a system of medicine where health care is a right and not a privilege. And we should take care of our people. We're the richest country, or one of the richest countries in the nation. Other countries in this that are this fortunate take care of their people. The people should be first. If you ask Matt Gaetz what what his vision of America is,
Oh boy,
he'll spend 15 minutes telling you everything that the liberals are doing wrong, but he won't be able to come up with one thing that he could say. Well, we have to get rid of wokeness. Well, describe wokeness.
where did you ever come in contact with wokeness? You haven't been woke a day of your life.
Yeah. So and Gates tweets this morning, and I love this because it is President's Day. So you do want to honor the office, even if you don't like the guy in it, right? Or woman, We will not defeat China in a world in which we portray weakness. Today, Joe Biden portrays that very weakness. On the day that he stands up and goes to Ukraine, Matt Gaetz once again has the situation well in hand.
Absolutely ass backwards there, Matt. And I'm sorry we didn't clear the trip to Ukraine with you. You didn't know, and you watch Fox, so there won't be any mention of it there.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. These what we have representing our country today. The other day, Nikki Haley said that there should be a competency test for people over 75 that want to run for or take office. I half agree with her. I think there should be a competency test for anybody who wants to run for office. You got to be able to prove that you have a basic working knowledge of the government that you want to be elected to go and the government that you want to be elected and be part of.
You think Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz could pass the citizenship test?
Not a prayer. Not a prayer. No, sorry, neither one of them. Matter of fact, I don't know, to be honest with you, that 50%, no, I'll go 75% of Congress could pass the citizenship test. Republicans and Democrats.
Think Mitch McConnell would pass?
Yeah, he'll probably pass. He'd probably pass. I'm not sure about McCarthy. But anybody who's in that kind of right, ultra-right, Tea Party-esque type of couldn't pass. You think Tommy Tuberville could tell you who the 39th president of the United States is?
Tommy Tuberville couldn't call a draw play right now if he had to. In fact, he couldn't diagram one for you if he had to.
Think Matt Gaetz could tell you who the 39th president of the United States is?
Biff Juggerman.
Or was? No. There's these people, because they're not in it to serve. They're not in it to be of service to people. People used to go with this. Yeah, they figured out ways to make cash on the side, but at least things got done.
They're there to make sure the beak never dries out. The beak must always be wet.
Right, exactly. At least they got things done. This Congress, what do they get done?
They're having hearings based on non-existent problems that allow them to show the level of ignorance that we're dealing with. And it's more and more plain whenever they have one of their special hearings that the witnesses they call are all the same people. It's the same collection of idiots, Dr. Fine, Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, or Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, Dr. Howard. That's it. Gathering in the hallway to concur on what's the best way to proceed when they don't even know the parliamentary procedure. You think Jim Jordan knows parliamentary procedure? I yield back.
Yeah, I don't think he has any idea. Yeah, we're just at a place where I know we harp on this all the time, but I think Nikki Haley's right. I think everyone that's running for office should be able to sing the Star Spangled Banner, just the first verse, recite the Pledge of Allegiance, give you at least how many Congress people, how many people in the legislature, in the national legislature, could recite the preamble to the Constitution?
Oh, I would think not many.
They probably a lot could tell you what the Second Amendment is, because I'm sure that comes attached to every dollar bill that the NRA sends them.
Well, they may not be able to quote it word for word, which is an important part of it, because
Right.
now we're taking it apart word by word to find out exactly what it might have ever meant.
I'll even go lower. How many do you think could name the original 13 colonies?
Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, no, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Virginia, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. Where am I?
How many you have? That's what, 9?
Uh, I guess Vermont was there,
Yeah, I had Vermont.
so that's 10.
Uh, you said New York, right?
I said New York, New Jersey,
New,
Connecticut.
Connecticut, Pennsylvania,
There you go. Now we're done.
and we're done.
Sorry, Pennsylvania. I left you out till the
Did you
very
say
last.
You said Massachusetts, right?
Yeah, that's where I started because I didn't think there was anything north of Massachusetts.
Yeah, no, they all no. There was New Hampshire, Vermont, because that's where Ethan Allen and his Green Mountain Boys were.
And that's where he asked, "Please do not tread on me."
Oh, please do not tread on the furniture because we have to sell it.
That's right. We just got it covered in plastic, and I don't want anybody sitting in the living room.
I always thought that was a great name for a bunch of soldiers. Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys. It sounded like the Dillards, you know. I mean,
After they got into when they got into the moonshine, they were a handful.
every time I heard that, I always thought that I always had the picture of the Dillards that were on the Andy Griffith Show all the time, sitting in their jail cell singing, and Andy grabbing a guitar and, can I join in?
That was a pretty talented family, the Dillards. They could sing and they could play.
Yeah, yeah. God, I can't remember. The Darlings is what they called them on Andy Griffith. The Darling family. And Denver Pyle used to play their father all the time. And who was the oh man, Charlene was the daughter who always was after Andy. But there was some great. I mean, they had a bunch of great. It was kind of my introduction to bluegrass music, and that kind of that end of the musical spectrum. They would get on there and and riff it, man. It was somebody ought to. I know they never. I don't think they ever have, but somebody ought to put together a CD of the great musical moments of the Andy Griffith Show.
Oh, good point.
There was some really good. There was some good picking on that show. Some good.
I never watched that show. I know as well as anyone, but I never watched it. I'm just familiar with the characters.
Yeah, it was. It was a great. Well, as a kid living in New York City, man, and with the bus and the subways and everything else,
It's pretty exotic.
every week, I looked at that and said, "Man, that's where I'd like to be, Mayberry." everybody likes each other, and everybody gets along real well, and it smells like apple pie and pot roast, and
And there's
now
only one of everything. There's one deputy, one drunk, one barber. You just have a few people to get to know, and you know the whole
right.
town.
There was there was one thing that you didn't see on the Andy Griffith Show, though.
You didn't see any black people.
Not a one. I don't know that there was any of them on there until
That was
uh
in East. They lived in East Mayberry.
yeah, until maybe 68, 69, something like that, when it actually became Mayberry RFD. I don't remember it. I could be wrong. I mean, probably haven't seen every one of the Andy Griffith shows, but I sure don't remember there ever being a black person on the Andy Griffith Show,
Even in the jail.
even in the jail. It was always white people getting locked up. Otis the drunk, white people.
Why didn't they just stop selling liquor to Otis? That's all they had to do. I'm sure it
Could
would
have been.
have.
Well, I think he was getting his liquor. I don't know that he was getting his liquor from a liquor store. I think he was
Oh, it was.
bopping up to the farmer there and getting the moonshine.
The squeezins.
Distill. He was getting the distill. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think that's it. I may be wrong.
And he didn't care where he got it.
Oh no, no. He would. Yeah, he was bad news. I mean, I never seen a drunker person. Although I do have to admit, there was an episode where he cleaned up because they found out that one of his ancestors founded the town.
So he
So
was
and so they
royalty.
were going to give him some kind of award or something like that, and they had to clean him up to get the award. And it was actually a very touching episode about they showed his wife and his kids, and it was the only time I ever remember seeing his wife.
She
Uh,
was still with him.
yeah. Well, back in those days, I guess you didn't divorce, right? What I want to know is what the hell was his job? I mean, how did he have it? What kind of job did he have?
Let's see. What can probably politics.
Yeah, he could have been the mayor. I mean,
Yeah.
you could obviously be drunk and do that. Anyway, so my question for you on President's Day is, if you could pick one president to join the four that are on Mount Rushmore, who would you put up there?
Theodore. I mean
Franklin?
Franklin Roosevelt.
Yeah, I think he. I mean, obviously I haven't done a big. We always like to do the Mount Rushmore of golfers or ball players or this and that. Well, I took a little bit of a different twist. I would agree with you. I think when you think about our greatest president of the past, since Rushmore was done,
Right.
you know, um, he would probably have to be the one that would go up there. Although Trump made a pretty good case for himself
Well,
when he visited Mount Rushmore.
because and it was very simple. The logic. I want to be on the mountain. But you have to earn it. I've already earned it. Now I want to be on the mountain.
Oh man.
I'm going to give a speech here and stand here, and you guys figure out a place to do it. There's room over there. You can put a
Yeah.
face. You can room over on that side. Let's get going on it. Let's hurry up.
You know what? I would agree that Trump should have his face up there. If they redid the other presidents, that they would have their eyes closed. So nobody would want to look at him. Oh man. So anyway, you remember when President's Day was actually not just one holiday, but
Two.
two holidays.
You had I think Lincoln's birthday was first, and then Washington's birthday, but I'm
Yeah,
not. I can't remember now.
That's
yeah. I
right.
think Lincoln was the 12th,
Yeah.
and
to the 20th.
Washington was the 22nd, wasn't it? Or was it the other way around?
No, I think you're right. 12th and
Yeah,
22nd,
yeah. I think it
somewhere
was
in
the
there.
12th and the 22nd.
And then now imagine doing that today, saying, "Here's the deal: we got two very important presidents, Washington and Lincoln. We want to honor them. We want to honor them so much for taking one day away from them and squeezing them both onto one day because Lincoln and Washington, that's good enough for me. One day, two presidents. Let's just streamline this whole thing. We're taking 2 days off in February. It's too much.
I,
The people need to be behind their desks and working and slaving on behalf of the corporation."
I love the fact because it used to be 2 days off of school.
Right. Now,
Yeah,
now
yeah.
you get no day off from school.
Well,
But the banks are
you get
closed.
one. You get one. You get President's Day. You get off, and
I
then
don't
they've
think that
added Martin Luther King Day so that you have that day off in January.
January 18th. I don't think the kids get President's Day off.
Really? I
No.
always thought they did. I know they must because all of the I'm you know what I'm sure it goes by different school districts, but I'm going to check with Seattle President's Day closings.
See if the Sea Dragons have the day off. That'll give you some idea about how serious they are
Well,
about this.
the sea dragons, Mikey. I don't know. I don't really know what you can, how much you can talk
What
about
about
the
the
sea
Kraken?
dragons.
Did the Kraken get the day off?
I don't know. Let's see. Banks are closed. Mailing USPS closed. Non-essential government agencies. Um, Retail will be open, and this is just a national look, though. This isn't Seattle. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that schools were off, except in the last year or two. It might have been because they got so many days off for COVID
Hmm.
that they might make them go to school on like a President's Day. Because I know here in Washington, as in many states, kids have to go to school a certain amount of days to qualify for the school district to qualify for certain fundings.
Federal money.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't care if the kids ever came to school.
I bet there's not one radio station in America that gives President's Day off to its staff.
I know that Cairo doesn't give it off to its air staff, but it gives it off to the office
Sales.
staff. Yeah,
Mhm.
the whole production office and all the other people are gone. It's just the air staff that are there on President's Day. I but normally, listen, I've had to work on Christmas. On a matter of fact, for CBS, I worked on Christmas for in Pittsburgh. I mean, we actually had I
Santa
had
Claus come? Did Santa
I had
Claus
to
come?
work Christmas morning, so I did this. I kind of I don't know what the heck else are you gonna do. Um, you know what do you think about God in sports? And 3 hours you don't know what the hell you're going to talk about, um, and got a good reaction to it, except for the program director
Who
who
hated it?
called up and said, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "I'm talking to people. I'm having a conversation." He said, "Well, I've never heard this on a sports radio station before." I said, "Well, good. I came up with a subject that nobody's ever talked about before." And I'll tell you what, Christmas morning, the phones were lit up. It was amazing to me
The
that,
the whole idea of religion in sports to me is this thing, always pointing to heaven. Next guy that points to heaven loses this finger. I'm telling you that's the new rule as I take over. I don't know what it means. I don't know what the idea is. I don't know what God is waiting for, or you're pointing to somebody else in heaven, your mama in heaven, or the manna from heaven, or
Well,
you're pointing at your agent who's going to keep you in heavenly bliss this day and forevermore.
I tend to think um, that invoking God in sports um, cheapens God. I mean, what do you think God?
Here's who wins.
Justify to me how you can have a God that says, okay, you win a football game, but yet priests can attack little children. You know,
Well,
if you if I mean if there's a God, if there is, if you believe in God, tell me how that works. How do you have? How does he give you a win, but let people starve?
and there were people in
And
Texas this morning who will tell you that God is a Cowboys fan and always has been, and he roots for the Cowboys over all other teams in the league.
I mean, I believe that I believe that people can believe that their faith allows them to do things that they might normally be able to do, but that's not so much God as it is you, right? I mean, I've always been leery of people invoking God on a sports field. I mean, I appreciate it if that's what they need to believe to get them to wherever they need to go. But yeah, the stuff with the pointing up in heaven all the time. Now, I know a lot of guys point up in heaven, like Randy Johnson used to point up to heaven when he won a game because of his father. He believed that his father was watching down on him, and that was his way of paying tribute to his dad. Which, if that's again, if that's what gets you to win, I mean, the good things have happened to me. I've thought of my father. I don't know if I've ever pointed to heaven, but if that's what you need to get you through it, But this stuff about, I was watching, what was I watching last night? Oh, I was watching the XFL. It was the game before the Seattle game, and
So the St. Louis Battlehawks.
right, and the Warthogs of San Antonio. There's a lot of hog going on around there,
San Antonio Brahmas, as in the bull.
and the head coach, I think he's the head coach of the St. Louis team is Ricky Prohl, who
Yes.
was a Seahawk, and his
Oh, yeah.
son scored a touchdown. And here's one thing I don't like about the XFL: they're interviewing players during the game.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I'm sorry, no.
And you got also get to hear all the plays being called.
So you, so his son, immediately they asked him how he scored, and Ricky Prohl's son, I guess, is the guy who scores a wide receiver. He starts going on about God and God and God. And I said, that's not the question. The question is, what did you see on that play?
Well,
So if I'm,
the Jesus freaks think that they're involved strictly with God as their co-pilot.
yeah, I'm sorry. I believe in God. I believe in religion. I don't believe that God makes you avoid running up the field or avoid a guy that's trying to block you. God helps maybe God helps the guy who had the heart attack on the field, help the surgeons do the right thing to bring him back to life. But God is way too busy. If there is a God, he's way too busy to worry about who wins a freaking football game. I'm sorry.
Or yeah, or football at all. Does he involve himself in any sports? I mean, does God say football interesting game? I'm more of a basketball fan. I don't really follow the football.
One time God intervened in
The
sports,
Immaculate
I
Reception.
believe. No, no. 1969 Mets. That was God. No other way it could have been. Nothing else.
Nothing else explains it
Nothing else
satisfactorily.
explains it. To this day, nobody's explained it satisfactorily to me.
The Miracle Mets.
The miracle Mets, that had to be God. Christians and Jews all praying for the same thing, had to have some kind of effect.
Push them
That's
over the line.
now in Seattle. Government offices will be closed along with public schools, libraries, banks, and community centers. So in Seattle, schools are closed.
Okay. I stand corrected.
Um, but yeah, but like I said, we used to get two.
Yeah.
Now we don't get that anymore.
That would be
Uh,
one day for each president. Now we get one day for two presidents. The way things are going, it'll be one day for three presidents, and I don't like the trend,
I think we ought to get a day off for every president.
especially Millard Fillmore.
I think
Who's a,
Fillmore Day should be Fillmore's birthday should be a holiday, a big holiday, a large holiday.
a fun
Um,
holiday with music and
yeah,
food.
you should do something. Woodstock should have been on Millard Fillmore's birthday.
Good point. The Millard Fillmore was one of our failed presidents. There was that whole middle part of the country when Millard Fillmore and his ilk were serving us as the chief executive, when they were famous for their incompetency and their inability to do anything correctly.
Well, listen, you had to think that he was doomed because of his number.
What number was he?
He was the 13th president.
Trouble.
I mean, that had to tell you something. And also the last member of the Whig Party to be president. And I'm not talking about the Christian Whig Party either, but Millard Fillmore, a New York guy, grew up in Sumner Hill, New York, lived in Buffalo, and he had two wives.
No waiting. Two wives,
Yeah.
no waiting.
Matter of fact, his one wife looks like she may have passed away when he took office.
She looks a
Or
little. Is that the one that looks remarkably like Red Skelton?
yes, yeah, but yes, Millard Fillmore, who is buried in Buffalo, New York, I guess was probably most famous for the Compromise of 1850. I don't even really know what the compromise was, but
But it was the only one that year. That's why it's famous.
yeah. But listen, he was a guy that broke up the Whig Party. So Republicans, go check out your history here because you may have a guy that'll break up the Republican Party.
Oh, you got plenty of guys to do that.
Yes. All right. Let's do a little presidential trivia. Any idea who preceded Millard Fillmore and who he was succeeded by?
Before and after.
Yes, before and after. Preceded by
No.
Zachary Taylor.
Wow, I would have never gotten that.
Succeeded by 1853 Franklin Pierce.
Ooh, he was another stinker.
Yeah, we had a succession of really strange.
But you know where where all these guys show up? Street names.
Oh yeah, in San Francisco, you can stand on the corner of Pierce and Fillmore, can't you?
If you insist, you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. Pierce, yeah, Pierce runs one. Yeah,
Yeah.
Fillmore runs the other way. Yeah, you can stand on the corner of Fillmore and Pierce with no problem. And there's tons of I mean, matter of fact, 37th Avenue in Jackson Heights, the street I used to hang out on a lot, before it was 37th Avenue, was Polk Avenue.
Oh yeah,
And
Polk is famous. The Polk Gulch in San Francisco.
yeah, Polk has a lot of Polk is a big time street in San Francisco. For many years was before the Castro was the main street of kind of the gay district.
And they had the big street festival in Polk every summer.
Yeah, yeah. A matter of fact, you could. I'm trying to think if Polk crosses Pierce as well. It doesn't. It runs the same way as Fillmore,
Polk runs parallel to Van Ness.
and Fillmore. Fillmore runs parallel to Van Ness as well.
Yes, sort of at that weird angle because it goes over the hill.
Yeah, yeah, it had it. Yeah, because Fillmore goes all the way down to. I think it
The
goes all the
marina.
way down to Marina Green. Yeah,
Yes, it does.
it becomes that this that main street in the marina. It opens up and becomes like because they park cars in the middle of it. It becomes a big
Right.
wide street.
It does get wider down there.
Yeah, for
Well,
one.
the
And now you know more about San Francisco streets than you
then
ever
you, then
wanted
you
to
know that you
know.
know about presidents. There is no Eisenhower Street, by the way.
Yeah, but there's a lot of Eisenhower expressways. I believe there's one in Chicago, and I believe which is odd because, well, the whole thing is named after Eisenhower. The interstate highway system's official name is the Dwight D. Eisenhower Interstate Highway and Defense System.
And defense.
Well, yeah, the reason they built the interstate highways was because there was interstate highways were built because Eisenhower took a trip from San Francisco to New York when he was way before he was a general, he was a corporal or something like that.
It took two
And
weeks.
it took like 2 weeks to get across the country. Then they stationed him in Germany, and he saw the autobahn and how
Mein
people
Gott.
could, back and forth across the country in no time. And Eisenhower, rightly so, said, well, if we ever got to get a tank from New York to wherever out west, we're going to be screwed because if that thing's got to go along Highway 50 all the way or Highway 60, whatever it is,
It's a
it's
joke.
not getting there. It's a joke. So we're going to build this system of wide highways that can accommodate military vehicles of all kinds. So that if we got to get a rocket from Huntsville, Alabama, up to Wisconsin, we can do it.
We want it there in a hurry.
We want it there in a hurry. We can, we have these big wide roads that go back and forth. Now, of course, he wasn't going to sell it just on that. So it had to be sold on the premise of that it was going to improve travel, be better for trucking, which it has. It also hurt a lot of people. In many cities, it was used as a racial divider to keep the black people on this side and the white people on this side. In other cities, it hurt so many people who had businesses on places like Route 66 and different U.S. highways.
It screwed up all the downtown businesses and made the frontage road the new frontier of America.
And here we are back at the frontage road, which probably didn't exist before the interstate highways.
That's right.
So yeah, I mean, but that's Eisenhower. So he literally has all of the interstates are named after Eisenhower. So he got the most streets really out of everybody.
Interesting. Well, Dwight D. I like Ike.
Yeah.
And and if you were going to open up a business on the frontage road, somebody would say, "I'm going to put a Baptist church there," and they said, "No, no. Think about it. Subway sandwich and a dry cleaner would be much more beneficial for America. Let's get that thing open tomorrow."
Okay. Let's see. All right. In honor of President's Day, the streets named after our nation's leaders. Let's see. Which city has the most streets named after past presidents?
Kalamazoo, Michigan.
New York City.
But all those streets are named after numbers.
No, there's a lot of
But there's the Roosevelt Parkway.
well, yes, the FDR Drive.
Right.
There's JFK. Well, there's the JFK. No, it's not. It's the RFK Bridge. He was never president. But there's a lot, especially if you go back into history. Were a lot of streets named after presidents. Let's see. The streets that have the most median home value Coolidge.
Really? Cal Coolidge?
Calvin Coolidge. Um, the median home value on streets named Coolidge are 176,300, higher than the median home value of 169,100. 17,702 homes are located on streets named after the 30th president, who once said, glowingly, perhaps one of the most important accomplishments of my administration has been minding my own business.
Yeah, Cal. That's not exactly what you were put there to do.
Yeah, let's see, the most common shared street name with a president, Washington, 215,279 homes.
We got a Washington here in Pasadena. You probably have a Washington right close to you in
Yeah, yeah.
Seattle.
Let's see, what else? Lowest medium home values. Van Buren in St. Louis, Fillmore in Indianapolis, Bush in Dallas Fort Worth, Buchanan in Cleveland, and Cleveland in Tampa.
Wow.
How's that for presidential trivia?
So Washington still rates highly.
Yeah.
Way to go, George.
The most Los Angeles has 3,292 homes named on streets named Lincoln.
Yeah, Lincoln's a big street in Santa Monica.
Yeah, Detroit has 3,221 homes on streets named Lincoln. And let me see if I can pick another good one. San Francisco, most common street, 1,891 homes are on Lincoln, which runs alongside Golden Gate Park, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Nice neighborhood.
Lincoln seems to be most. It seems like the most houses in America are located on streets either named Washington or Lincoln.
Well, who wants to live on Nixon Street, really, when you think about it, or Trump Avenue?
I wonder if there's even a Nixon Street. I'm sure they have one somewhere in. I mean, you would think in Whittier, right, where he was born. Was he born in Whittier?
Close to there. Loma Vista. What's the name of his town?
San Clemente is where he had the
So he had the Western White House.
Western White House. You know
Yorba
his house.
Linda. Yorba Linda. Yeah.
His house is on the grounds of the Nixon Library. There's a Nixon Street in Roy, Washington, a Nixon Street in Lakewood, Washington. There's
Washington
a Nixon
State.
Street Medical Center in Australia, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Elk River, Minnesota, Cherry Grove, Pasco, Washington,
Pasco, what did we ever do to piss you off?
Belmont, North Carolina, Caldwell, Idaho. I figured there'd be one there. Genoa, Nevada.
Genoa,
Cincinnati,
Nevada.
Genoa, Nevada. Wilmington, Delaware. Shepperton. Sounds like it's in England. And we're calling from Shepperton.
Shepperton Studios.
Yeah. And let's see, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Philadelphia. Seems like there's a lot of Nixon streets.
Is Grand Rapids close to Battle Creek?
Grand Rapids, if I'm right, is in the middle of the state. I don't know how close it is. I'm not sure.
Because I send a lot of box stops to Battle Creek. I just want.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a whole different story for another day. Because the whole Battle Creek, Michigan thing is crazy. I sent a lot of pennies to Terre Haute, Indiana.
What do they want the pennies for?
Do you know what Terre Haute, Indiana is?
No.
It was the home of the Columbia Record Club.
Oh God.
And remember, you used to tape a penny to the card in the magazine and send it to them, and they would send you 12 albums back, and then a new album every month for your approval.
But there was a list. There was a list of records, and you didn't want those records. You
Yeah,
wanted something
well,
else.
I don't know. I found some pretty cool records on the Columbia Record Club and under several assumed names.
I think I got the Yardbirds. Yardbirds were on Epic, weren't they?
I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think
So
they were.
okay, they were on the Columbia list. Who
Yeah,
else did I get? I think Donovan.
yeah. I got a bunch. I think I got. I can't even remember which ones I got. All I know is one day this box came and there were 12 albums in it, and I was the happiest dude in the world, man. I had records to play for, and then one started showing up, and then I didn't send anything. Then the next one started showing up, and after that, all these letters started showing up. I don't know. I think my mother finally paid them off, sent them $4.95, and said, "Leave
Dear
us
Mr.
alone."
Spacuzzi, please remit.
Exactly. All right. So before we
You
let
know, in
this,
Czechoslovakia, they don't have a record club. They were
yes,
going to
they
get
do.
one. They do. They didn't have
Yeah.
one when I
Oh,
was
oh
there.
no, they have a record club. It's called the Used Record Club, or the name of it is Record Spectacularski.
So you get Franti and Texture's greatest hits with a scratch on Exodus.
Exactly. Dun dun click.
Beep, beep,
Dun dun.
quick.
Dun 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 dun. Pick, 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 dun. Oh man! All right. So before we go, speaking about presidents, Mikey, we should definitely send our best wishes and thoughts to the best ex-president I think this country has ever had,
Jimmy.
and that is Jimmy Carter, who has gone into hospice care
Yeah.
at his home in Plains, Georgia.
At the age of 98 degrees.
98 years old, man.
That's
That's
a good long run.
it's a good long run, and let's face it, he was active up until last year. He was out doing stuff, building houses for people and mediating elections and all sorts of stuff. I never had much respect for him as a president.
He had a tough time as a president.
He had a tough time as a president. But boy, as a human being, how do you get any better than Jimmy Carter?
I wish I could remember the exact quote, but someone who wrote a book about him said he was the only man to use the presidency as a stepping stone to greater things.
Very true. Very, very true. What he's done since he's left the office of president has been nothing short of a textbook example of how to live your life.
And it's fun to see him with his gloves on, with his hammer and his tool belt out there building homes with his wife for people who didn't have a home. Name a president, name anybody, name a senator, name a member of Congress, name a mayor of a major city, name a politician of any stripe who would give of himself in that way. You won't find any of them. That's
No.
not in their nature. They're not givers, they're takers and consumers.
One of the pleasures I've had in my life was being able to go to the Jimmy Carter Center in Atlanta when I was down there a few years ago, and and just reading about his history and reading about how smart he was, and just understanding what he was all about. And it was if you ever get a chance to go down there, if you're ever in Atlanta, budget a little time to go to the Carter Center and learn more about a guy who really uh, walked the walk that he preached, and it was peace and understanding and helping people out and
And
making
peanuts.
sure. Yeah, peanuts.
He knew peanuts.
He knew peanuts. Remember, they had that big peanut with the teeth that when he was running for president. And people forget. You think Hunter Biden is trouble? Billy Carter had a damn beer named after him.
Billy Beer, and he earned that name well. It wasn't like he had a casual relationship with beer. It was a personal relationship. It
No,
was a daily relationship.
he was a good old boy. When you couldn't embarrass the president, he managed to figure out a way to embarrass Jimmy Carter.
His own
You know,
brother. Calm down, is your brother. Well, I
uh,
don't know.
I think the gas station is still up. I remember looking at it a couple of years ago. Matter of fact, I think I did something for drive time on it less than a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago. And the station is still the gas station in Plains, Georgia, is still standing. Still has a sign on it. This was Billy Carter's gas station.
Well, if you were going to drive to Atlanta from Plains, wouldn't you want to gas up at Billy's place?
I would. I didn't at the time. I didn't think of it to go. Well, I didn't go to Plains. I went to Atlanta, and that's where they have the Carter Center.
Right.
So I went there. I was on a Kia program, and they gave me a car. I was driving up to New York City, and but I wanted to spend a little time in Atlanta just to look around and see, because I don't know that I had been to Atlanta before. Well, I had been there a long time ago, and it was very different now
They
than
must
it
have
was.
they must have thought that Atlanta was not going to be much of a city when they started naming the streets because they came up with Peachtree, and then they just kept calling it Peachtree.
Every place you go, there's a Peachtree Street. You can't. Thank God there wasn't a President Peachtree.
There wasn't it. We were close. I'm sure Peachtree just about got enough votes to win.
Oh man! All right, Mikey. I will see you. What is today? Monday, isn't it?
It's a morose Monday. We'll get together for a wacky Wednesday.
We'll get together for a wacky Wednesday, and hopefully the world will be in better shape on Wednesday than it was on Monday.
And Lincoln and Washington will forgive us for combining their birthdays. Can you imagine how I felt
I
about that?
I still don't think that they're going to forgive us. I think they're pretty PO'd about it, to be honest with you. If they gave you a holiday, then took it away, would you be upset?
Well, who was president when they did that? Was it Kennedy or was it Nixon?
No, it had to be. I think it might have been Reagan. Um,
So when Reagan showed up in heaven, who do you think met him at the gate? George Washington and Abraham Lincoln are standing there, arms folded, their feet tapping. You know how you tap your toe when you're
oh yeah.
embarrassed? Yeah. Yeah. And they say, so, President Reagan, we understand that you're the guy who took Abraham Lincoln's birthday. No, Lincoln says, we kept my birthday. We took Washington's birthday and we jived it. No, no, no. Washington says, my birthday's still honored. You, Abe, you got shafted.
I was wrong. It was Nixon.
Okay, I
Uh,
guessed it.
1971, the Uniform Monday holiday law changed the date to the third Monday in February. The position of a holiday between the birthdays of Washington and Abraham Lincoln gave rise to the popular name
So he
of
said
President's
they're never
Day.
going to give me a Nixon's birthday off. No one's ever going to get my birthday off. So what I'm going to do is in to preempt the problem as I see it existing, taking George Washington's birthday and Lincoln's birthday, and we're putting him in the middle where Millard Fillmore was born.
Well, the one flaw in your theory is that that would predispose or that would make you think that Nixon would be in the same place as Lincoln and Washington.
Just his paperwork.
Something tells me, I may be wrong. Something tells me though that they're not all in the same place.
Well, what happens is Richard Nixon was reborn the week after he died, and he came back as a coal miner in West Virginia. And
No, he came back as
that's his
Marjorie
crown.
Taylor Greene. No, Roy Cohn came back as Mar. That's a subject for
Oh,
different who.
I like that. That's pleasing to me. Yes, I like that.
Roy Cohn is reincarnated as Marjorie Taylor Greene.
He still has a lot of that edge that he got in law school.
Well, as the great oh my God, I just had the name on the tip of my tongue. Oh, as the great Shirley Booth once said, Mr. B. All right, man. I'll see you Wednesday if the Lord's will and the creek don't rise.
What about that Manischewitz?
Tell you what, man, you can't go anywhere if you don't have three things:
What are
peace,
they?
love, and Manischewitz, baby.
What a wine. See you Wednesday.
See you Wednesday, man. Take care. And thank you all for listening. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button. You just got an hour and 20 minutes worth of entertainment from Michael Knight, New York, Vinnie. See you Wednesday.